Our top focus this morning remains on the Omicron threat, and at a time when this mutant variant is spreading across the world and the threat of Omicron looms large, the chorus within the country is growing for a booster dose. The Serum Institute of India sought approval for a booster dose for its Covishield vaccine from the Drug Controllers General of India. Serum Institute has cited UK's regulatory booster approval for AstraZeneca vaccine and has claimed that it has enough vaccine stock in the country for a booster shot as well. COVID-19 task force member N.K. Arora has said that India will have a policy on booster doses in the next 2 weeks. So far, 36 nations are administering booster COVID doses to their population. The United States leading has administered 1.24 crore booster doses, followed by Turkey with 1.19 crore boosters.
If somebody has not been able to mount enough immunity after the 2 doses, for that individual or for a special subgroup, one could think of, administering a 3rd dose. But the discussion around that should be disjointed from the Omicron, because we do not know yet whether the presence of Omicron would require a vaccine, because we must remember that these vaccines against COVID-19, they are disease-modifying vaccines. They are not infection-preventing vaccines.
Our reading as of now is that the boosters, given the situation of the vaccination program that we have today with our vaccines, is really not required at this point in time. We'll continue to explore the timing and the need for the boosters going along. There are studies that are in the offing. There are studies that are ongoing, in fact, and there is data that's very systematically being tracked.
Sneha Murdani is joining us live with more details on this. Sneha, good morning. What really are you hearing about the strategy on booster doses? Is the government going to give a nod?
Well, the INTAGIO, the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, which is the body that decides on vaccinations to be given out, the technical details, the gap of the vaccines, of the doses, boosters, vaccines for children, all of that is decided by the INTAGI. That is deliberating on boosters. Now in India, it's very clear it's not going to be called boosters. It's going to be called the 3rd dose or the additional dose. And clearly the first set of people to be given the 3rd dose or the additional dose is going to be the immunocompromised population. What the strategy is going to be, what is going to be the identification of this particular group of people, and whether this is also going to involve a certain section of the healthcare workers in the senior citizen category is something that the INTAGI is deliberating upon, and it's only a matter of time before it approaches the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare with the specific guidelines for them to put this out. INTAGI has indicated already, at least through our sources, that it's going to take anywhere between 7 to 10 days, maybe a few days here and there, to then come out with a detailed policy on what they intend to do when it comes to the additional dose or the 3rd dose in the country, which everybody else outside of India is calling booster doses. What's clear is that boosters, as we know it outside of India, for example, in the US or in the UAE, where the general population is being given another dose, is not something that's going to happen in India soon. Well, the INTAGIO, the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, which is the body that decides on vaccinations to be given out, the technical details, the gap of the vaccines, of the doses, boosters, vaccines for children, all of that is decided by the INTAGI. That is deliberating on boosters. Now in India, it's very clear it's not going to be called boosters. It's going to be called the 3rd dose or the additional dose. And clearly the first set of people to be given the 3rd dose or the additional dose is going to be the immunocompromised population. What the strategy is going to be, what is going to be the identification of this particular group of people, and whether this is also going to involve a certain section of the healthcare workers in the senior citizen category is something that the INTAGI is deliberating upon, and it's only a matter of time before it approaches the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare with the specific guidelines for them to put this out. INTAGI has indicated already, at least through our sources, that it's going to take anywhere between 7 to 10 days, maybe a few days here and there, to then come out with a detailed policy on what they intend to do when it comes to the additional dose or the third dose in the country, which everybody else outside of India is calling booster doses. What's clear is that boosters, as we know it outside of India, for example, in the US or in the UAE, where the general population is being given another dose, is not something that's going to happen in India soon.
So far there have been no Omicron cases in India, but we are on high alert because 6 international travelers have tested COVID positive. On the first day of the operations, and this is of the guidelines for international travelers coming to effect issued by the centre, 3,476 passengers from 11 international flights from at-risk countries were screened. Samples of 6 positive passengers have been sent for genome sequencing to the INSACOG labs. Now, a total of 11 international flights landed at various airports of the country except Lucknow from at-risk countries. India continues to keep track of the evolving situation and supporting states as well as union territories in the fight against Omicron. Maharashtra, meanwhile, has decided to put a hold on mandatory RT-PCR tests upon arrival.
One sees that the first report was from South Africa. The report was on the 9th of November. So during that time, many travels have happened all over the world and from and within South Africa. So one would not be surprised if this variant is detected within India. It's just a matter of time, of course. But it should not necessarily cause a panic because majority of these infections might be asymptomatic or might cause mild diseases.
Just as international travel was beginning to finally show signs of revival, the threat of Omicron is back to haunt travelers. India has put its decision to resume international flights on hold. And just as new guidelines for travelers have come into force, there was chaos, there was confusion at several airports. Aishwarya Paliwal and Vidya get you this report.
The invisible enemy is back in a scarier avatar with over 30 mutations. Amid Omicron threat, centre and states are rushing to contain the mutant. In a mega move, the centre has put brakes on full resumption of international flights. Aviation watchdog DCGI, which fixed 15th of December as the date for restarting international flights, said it is watching the situation and a new date will be notified in due course. Maharashtra has made 7-day institutional quarantine mandatory for flyers from at-risk nations. Flyers will be tested 3 times on the 2nd, 4th and 7th day of their arrival. All positive passengers will be shifted to the hospital. Negative passengers will be further subjected to a 7-day home quarantine. Intra-state flyers need full vaccination or recent negative RT-PCR test. For interstate flyers, negative RT-PCR is must.
There are more than 50 booths that have been put up where RT-PCR tests are being done. Apart from that, there's a waiting lounge for people to wait in where, if the testing really takes a while, they'll be asked to wait. Also, for people who have connecting flights, if they are in transit, then for them also antigen tests have been put in place.
The Narendra Modi government, however, is upset with Maharashtra issuing guidelines that are different from those framed by the centre. It has urged the Maharashtra government to revise its guidelines. Checks imposed by other states are mostly in line with centre's guidelines. Delhi has made testing mandatory on arrival. If the report is negative, then the passenger will be subjected to a home quarantine for 7 days and get tested again. All positive flyers will be admitted to hospital.
There is a separate room in the airport which has been made where all the passengers coming or will be asked to sit. The test will be done and they'll have to wait till the time the result does not come. Now, typically, the result takes anywhere between 5 to 6 hours, which means that your flight will take it longer. It will take you longer to come out of the airport.
The new norms spell hassle for flyers who are now made to wait for hours for test results and brave long queues at airports.
कोई गाइडेंस नहीं थी हमको कि आपको पीसीआर टेस्ट कराना है, और नहीं तो हम लोग पहले ऑनलाइन बुक करा के आते। उसके बाद 2 टेस्ट हैं यहाँ पे, एक है नॉर्मल टेस्ट और एक है रैपिड फायर। नॉर्मल टेस्ट लाइक वो ले रहे हैं 8 घंटे, और जो रैपिड फायर है वो 1 घंटा बोल रहे हैं, बट 1 घंटे में किसी को रिपोर्ट दी नहीं। तो अंदर काफ़ी लोग परेशान हो रहे हैं कि बच्चों के साथ छोटे छोटे बच्चे वेट नहीं कर पा रहे, बस खाने को कुछ नहीं है।
The WHO, meanwhile, opposed blanket travel ban, calling them ineffective to curb the virus threat. With Vidya and Aishwarya Paliwal, Bureau Report, India Today.
The suspension of 12 opposition MPs continues to be a key flashpoint between the government and the opposition. After Tuesday's showdown, fireworks are expected in the parliament today as well. On Tuesday, the House was adjourned by Rajya Sabha Chair Venkaiah Naidu after multiple disruptions. Rajya Sabha Chairman Naidu slammed MPs over the ruckus and refused to revoke their suspension. The suspended MPs have also remained defiant, refusing to apologise for the August 11th incident. The 12 MPs, in fact, are set to continue their Dharna outside the parliament over the suspension for a second consecutive day. Rahul Gandhi also met these MPs who were sitting on a Dharna yesterday. The leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha, Mallikarjun Kharge, shot off a letter to Naidu on behalf of these MPs. Kharge called the move of suspension an unprecedented and excessive action, adding that MPs should be given a chance to present their case. Some opposition parties have threatened to boycott the entire winter session unless the suspension is revoked. There is growing concern now if these disruptions will cloud the winter session. Many key bills are to be introduced in the next few days.
हम आज़ादी के 75वां साल अमृत महोत्सव बना रहे हैं। उस समय पे पार्लियामेंट डेमोक्रेसी का हनन करना और किसी तरीके से विपक्ष को नहीं सुनना, उसके खिलाफ ही प्रोटेस्ट है। अनडेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेस जो हो रहा है उसके खिलाफ ही प्रोटेस्ट है।
ये उस मेजॉरिटी का एरोगेंस है। जब वो अपोजिशन में थे तब वो भी डिसरप्शन कर रहे थे, तब ऐसे कभी नहीं हुआ। पीपल ऑफ बंगाल हैज said them goodbye. We hope 2024 election in center, the people of our country will say them goodbye.
No question of apologizing, no question of bowing to the dictates of this fascist government. We will be raising these issues again and again in the parliament, because we are in the parliament to raise the issues that concern the people of our country.
We are protesting against the anti-people legislations and anti-people policies of the BJP government. We will not surrender before that.
They are trying to kill the spirit of dissent, discussion and debates in the House. That's why that mistake was done by the government. The crime is theirs.
We will be protesting here until and unless this illegal suspension is withdrawn.
The infighting within the Punjab Congress continues to create headaches for the party high command. The war of Sardars between Navjot Singh Sidhu and Chief Minister Channi has forced Rahul Gandhi now to intervene. And here's all that you need to know on the story.
Rahul Gandhi makes another attempt to resolve the war of Sardars 2.0. Holds a 5-hour-long key huddle ahead of Punjab polls. The Congress MP from Wayanad summoned Punjab Congress Chief Navjot Singh Sidhu and State Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi to his Tughlaq Lane residence on Wednesday. Sources tell India Today the trio discussed growing factionalism within the party after few Punjab leaders expressed their concern over the crisis. Punjab Congress sources tell us that Rahul instructed the duo to work together and focus on the upcoming polls. Sources further claim that Sidhu reiterated Channi government's inaction in drug menace and sacrilege case and sought an early response. He had earlier threatened to go on a hunger strike.
मैं आज ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣਾ, ਜੇ ਇਹ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਨਾ ਖੋਲੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਨਵਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਆਪਣੀ ਦੇਹੀ ਦਾ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾਓ, ਮਰਨ ਵਰਤ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾਓ। ਜਾਓ, ਕਹਤਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ।
At the meeting, while giving a detailed account of the work done by his government, Channi raised the explosive statements made by Sidhu in public. Discussion over appointments in Punjab Pradesh Congress Committee also figured in the meeting. Rahul also chaired an hour-long meet with former Punjab Congress chief Sunil Jakhar. The crisis in Congress is spiralling even as former Chief Minister Amrinder Singh firms up an alliance to fight the elections. On Monday, the captain met Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar to end their long-drawn fight over farmer protests. With the battle-ready captain and BJP spoiling for a fight, will Rahul's effort to firefight the implosive in Congress help the party stay afloat in the poll-bound state of Punjab? Bureau Report, India Today.
As election season comes closer in Uttar Pradesh, all parties have brought in their big guns to boost their poll prospects. For the BJP, Home Minister Amit Shah will be in Saharanpur to lay the foundation stone for Ma Shakumbhari Devi University in Behat Assembly constituency. Shah's visit is also being seen as an attempt by the BJP to woo farmers in Uttar Pradesh following the repeal of the farm laws. Congress's Priyanka Gandhi Vadra will be in Moradabad to address the Pratigya Sammelan Lakshya. This visit to Moradabad will be the first of Priyanka's after over a decade. SP Chief Akhilesh Yadav will be in Bundelkhand region to kick off the fifth leg of his Pradesh Yatra. Akhilesh will be addressing a rally in Lalitpur and after that will move on to Jhansi, where he will address another rally the next day. Welcome back. The central government has reached out to Punjab farm leaders to suggest 5 names for the formation of a committee for MSP legislation. Ever since, the farm organizations linked with the Samyukt Kisan Morcha have been holding a series of meetings at the single border. It appeared the final destination of this movement is approaching and the farmers who are sitting on the borders of Delhi might just return to their homes. However, these developments have also exposed a difference of opinion within this farmer group over a withdrawal of the agitation.
After spearheading a massive farmers' protest for months, united against the centre's 3 farm laws, now a big split in Kisan unions. After the centre repealed farm laws in the parliament, the Samyukt Kisan Morcha stands divided over ending its agitation. A faction of farmers now want to end the stir.
जब जो हमारी 6 की 6 मांगें कंसीड हो गई, हम कमेटी बैठ गई है, उस कमेटी की फॉर्मेशन इन ऑर्डर है, वो 1-2 दिन में कंप्लीट हो जाने हैं, हमने ना दे देने हैं। 4 को संयुक्त किसान मोर्चे की मीटिंग है, उसमें हमारी ये घोषणा हो सकती है वापस जाने के लिए। मैं ये बोल रहा है तो ठीक है, कोई कंफ्यूजन नहीं इसमें, नो कंफ्यूजन।
अब हम चाहते हैं पंजाब वाले ज़्यादा लोग कि हमारी ज़्यादा मांगे मान गई हैं और सभी मांगे तो पूरी नहीं हुई, ये तो चलती रहेगी। शहीदों का दर्जा देना, उनके लिए यादगार बनाना, उनके लिए मुआवजा देना, मगर कातर मुआवजा कब देता है? तो हम ये चाहते हैं कि एजिटेशन तो चलेगी, जहां मोर्चे की बजाय स्टेटों में चलेगी, तो पर फैसला 4 को ही होगा।
Other farm leaders have maintained that the agitation would continue till there is a clarity on the committee for MSP and the cases against farmers are not withdrawn.
जिन्ना चक्कर सरकार सानू सारा कुछ लिख के नहीं भेजती, उन्हां ते कोई डिक्लेयर नहीं करांगे। अज इन्नी गल हुई है, 2 गल्लां ते साथी ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਦਣੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੈਅ ਕਰੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਅਗਲਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਹੈਗਾ। ਕੱਲ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਕੁਝ ਅਗਲੀਆਂ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਹੈ, ਦੁਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਡੀ 3 ਤਰੀਕ ਦੀ 32 ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਫੇਰ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਤੇ 4 ਤਰੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੰਯੁਕਤ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਹੈ।
ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਮੋਰਚਾ, ਅੱਜ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਮੋਰਚਾ, 2 ਤਰੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਮੋਰਚਾ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ। ਮੋਰਚਾ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਜਾਰੀ ਰਹੇਗਾ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਦੀ ਬੈਠਕ ਬੁਲਾਵੇ, ਬੈਠਕ ਬੁਲਾ ਕੇ ਆਮਣੋ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਬੈਠੇ। ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮੰਗਾਂ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਮੰਨ ਲਈਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ, ਮੋਰਚੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ। ਐਵੇਂ ਹਵਾਵਾਂ 'ਚ ਮੋਰਚਾ ਐਵੇਂ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਜਾਰੀ ਰਹੂਗਾ।
Some farmer unions from Punjab and Haryana even held a separate meet at Singhu border on Wednesday.
एक ही फैसला होएगा संयुक्त मोर्चे का, बख कोई फैसला नहीं होगा। ये अफवाहें हैं, कोई भी संगठन नहीं कह रहा कि ऐसी जा रहे हैं।
The Samyukt Kisan Morcha, however, has distanced itself from this meeting. It is set to hold its own huddle on Saturday to decide the future course of action.
हम ये हैं कि हरियाणा पे 55,000 मुकदमे हैं, जब तक वे खत्म नहीं होंगे हम घर नहीं जाएंगे।
Decade has sent SKM leader Jagtar Singh Bajwa to the Singhu border to iron out the growing differences within the union.
Now this is a precursor to the main meeting where both the sides will be keeping their proposals on what next for the farmer movements, where on the one hand we see major Punjab organizations wanting to go back, on the other the Haryana farmers believe that there are certain Haryana specific issues that also needs to be addressed. With video journalist Zia, this is Shreya Chatterjee for India Today.